I said to myself, "Come now, I will test you with pleasure to find out what is good." But that also proved to be meaningless. Laughter, I said, is madness. And what does pleasure accomplish? I tried cheering myself with wine and embracing folly, my mind still guiding me with wisdom. I wanted to see what was good for people to do under the heavens during the few days of their lives. I undertook great projects. I built houses for myself and planted vineyards. I made gardens and parks and planted all kinds of fruit trees in them. I made reservoirs to water groves of flourishing trees. I bought male and female slaves and had other slaves who were born in my house. I also owned more herds and flocks than anyone in Jerusalem before me. I amassed silver and gold for myself and the treasure of great kings and provinces. I acquired male and female singers and a harem as well, the delights of a man's heart. I became greater by far than anyone in Jerusalem before me. In all this, my wisdom stayed with me. I denied myself nothing my eyes desired. I refused my heart no pleasure. My heart took delight in all my labor, and this was the reward for all my toil. Yet when I surveyed all that my hands had done and what I had toiled to achieve, everything was meaningless, a chasing after the wind. Nothing was gained under the sun.
Brilliant, thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. It's so good to see you all. Welcome back. Welcome back. Not quite in the building, but welcome back into September. We've had the summer. I hope you had a good summer. Did you have a good summer? Okay, let's do a little experiment, shall we? Let's rate. If you had to give your summer a score out of 10, what would you give it? Okay, so hands up if you give it more than 5. So generally positive. Yeah, okay, most of the room. That's encouraging, isn't it? Anyone would give it 5, a fairly average summer? Maybe one. Anyone below 5, if you're happy to admit that? Yeah, oh, I'm sorry. I think I'd give mine, probably 7, I think. We've had some quite nice weather this summer, I think, haven't we? We've had nice weather. I've eaten a lot of ice cream this summer, and I love ice cream. What else is happening? The building project. I know we're a few days off, but that's pretty good for a building project. So that's been a positive for me. And my beloved Arsenal Football Club, we finally signed a striker. So it's ours to lose this season, I think. I've had some lows as well. We found 4 unpaid parking fines had been sent to our old address months ago, had been accumulating over the months. So literally we had to pay hundreds of pounds to the council. Disaster. I got on the phone with the council and negotiated. Well, I say negotiating, it was more like grovelling. And they took pity. They're a very nice council, the Wandsworth Council. But I was chatting to someone from HDC over the summer, and she was saying how she enjoys the summertime because there's a bit more space in the summer, isn't there? But she said she prefers it when life is a bit busier. Because she says when there's more space, well, it's the time when you kind of start asking yourself those kind of big, uncomfortable questions in life. Like, why am I still here? Maybe why am I still doing a job that I don't really enjoy? What am I doing with my life at the moment? And she's not alone. So I saw an article from a big recruiter that was sort of coming up on my social media. It was titled, "How to Stop Staff Leaving After Summer Holidays," which is very positive, saying coming back in. But I haven't seen any stats about what the summer does to our faith, spiritually. But I imagine it's not that different. As you head into the new academic year, you may be thinking, I want these next 12 months to be a time of real substance, of real meaning. And there may be some here who are kind of spiritually weighing up the options. The temptation to walk away from your job or from where you live, those are real things. But maybe you're also thinking, I'm a little bit tempted to walk away from God and look elsewhere for, the purpose in my life, the meaning in my life. Maybe to sort of just drift away from church a little bit. Maybe that temptation is real for you today. Or perhaps you don't yet have a faith here today, and you're kind of looking in and you're thinking, why bother? What's the point of it all? Why bother? Either way, those are exactly the type of questions that the author of Ecclesiastes was asking himself. It was probably King Solomon, and he was kind of wrestling with these things. He too had a moment of asking, what's the point of life? Where can I find meaning? So in chapter 1, verse 3, he puts it like this. He says, "What do people gain from all their labors at which they toil under the sun?" In other words, where can I find something that truly kind of satisfies that kind of thirst, that kind of hunger we have in our souls at times? So what he does, instead of looking to God for it, he looks elsewhere to other things. He calls it life under the sun. And he starts off with pleasure. He says in verse 1, "I said to myself, I will test you with pleasure to find out what is good." And then in verse 10, he says, "I denied myself nothing my eyes desired. I refused my heart no pleasure." Now, if this was a sort of Netflix series, I think this episode would be kind of R-rated, wouldn't it? I mean, it's all here, isn't it? There's kind of the sex, there's parties, there's drink, the full works. In verse 8, we're told he even has a harem, which is basically like a private brothel. So he's kind of chasing every buzz he can, isn't he? And it's kind of no accident that he starts here with pleasure, with sex, because we all feel that pull on our hearts for pleasure. I see it in my own heart. Every one of us has been enticed by it. Every one of us has had stumbles along the way in this area. We're all sexual sinners, including me. Which is why, in my experience, I found that the most common reason people often drift away from their faith isn't so much about kind of having doubts or suffering, but actually, to put it bluntly, it's to do with sex. I've known Christian friends who have tried to follow Jesus in every area of their life except their sex life. And what they end up doing is they're kind of doing like the spiritual splits. Kind of one foot in the Jesus camp and one foot in the I'll do what I want camp. And they're kind of doing the splits. And it's exhausting to live in this kind of life. And it doesn't really work, frankly. And it's so sad for me to say this, but I've seen plenty of Christian friends who have chosen the relationship over their relationship with Jesus, their relationship with their boyfriend, girlfriend, whoever it is. I've seen it again and again. People who once said to me, to my face, there's no one more important to me than Jesus, but then slowly drift away. And this pull towards pleasure is not just inside the church, and it's not actually even just with adults, is it? Over the summer, you may have seen the article, or it was in the news across different media outlets, that age checks were added to major porn sites over the summer. And the BBC reported that traffic on some of these big sites had dropped by almost 50% overnight. The lure of pleasure, well, it can sometimes override our sense of reason as well. One study showed that 46% of Americans they say porn is harmful, and yet 61% say they still watch it. Now that's a lot of people kind of doing something, watching something they know isn't good for them. So, the pull of pleasure on our hearts, it's real, isn't it? It's real, it's enticing. No wonder the author of Ecclesiastes tried it in his search for meaning. In chapter 2, verse 1, he says to himself, "I will test you with pleasure to find out what is good." But what's his conclusion? He said, "That also proved meaningless. What does pleasure accomplish?" The word for meaningless he uses is actually the word hevel. It literally kind of means vapor or breath. Something you can't actually kind of hold on to. So, try right now. Yeah, let's hope you've all brushed your teeth. Try, exhaling, and then try to grab hold of it, It just kind of slips away, doesn't it? It just slips away. And the point isn't that pleasure is bad. God created sex. Jesus turned water into wine at that wedding, didn't he? And, heaven, the new creation, is described as this massive banquet, this massive party. But the point is this. If you make pleasure your ultimate kind of source of meaning, it will be as empty as trying to take hold of your breath. Elizabeth Taylor once dubbed the most beautiful woman in the whole world. She once said, after a long history of sex and drugs, she said, "The things that are supposed to liberate you, the parties, the pills, the lovers, they end up enslaving you. I thought they were happiness, but they weren't." So, if it's not in pleasure, where can we find true substance, true meaning? Well, Solomon, what he does next in Ecclesiastes is he turns from pleasure to money. So in verse 8, he says, I amassed silver and gold for myself and the treasure of kings and provinces. His plan was kind of simple, get rich. And he pulls it off, doesn't he? It sounds like he's got a huge amount of money. He had the treasure of kings and provinces. It reminds me a little bit of my school friend Edwin from school. So Edwin was this, I absolutely loved Edwin. He was like this really straight-talking Nigerian. And we both signed up to study economics at school. And it was that classic thing when, the first class of term of the year, whatever, and the teacher asks each person in the class, why did you, sign up to study this subject? Why did you sign up to study economics? And, you had the classic kind of answers of, I like numbers, or, I want to study markets, and this sort of thing, which probably no one really believed. But then we got to Edwin, and Edwin, straight talking, he just said, I want to make loads of money and become very rich. And everyone just burst out laughing, like, that's very funny. And the teacher, with a smile, re-asked Edwin, seriously, Edwin, why are you studying economics? And he said, no, really, I want to make loads of money and become really rich. And it was just like silence in the room. But basically, he'd said what most of the people in the room were thinking. Because even though we don't necessarily often admit it, maybe we don't even always see it in our lives, the pursuit of money and stuff, it drives so much of what we do, doesn't it? A church leader once said to me, he said he was doing a 7-part series on the 7 deadly sins at a men's breakfast. And his wife joked to him and said, the week you do greed will be your lowest turnout for the 7-part series. And she was right. The room was packed for lust. The room was packed for wrath, for pride. But greed, not so much. Her point was this: very few people actually think they're greedy. And yet Jesus warned about money far more than anything else, including sex. Why? Well, I guess because greed is so subtle. In Luke 12, Jesus says, watch out, be on your guard for all kinds of greed. And yet our hearts trick us, don't they? They kind of trick us. I see this so often in my life. We kind of do that kind of comparison thing where we look at the people around us and we see what they can afford. They can afford those amazing holidays or that amazing stuff or the house, the flat, whatever it is, the meals out. And we sort of measure ourselves against them. And what we have, it kind of feels quite small in comparison. And, even if we've got plenty of stuff, it never feels like quite enough. Quietly, money just kind of has a sort of little grip on our hearts. Perhaps that's why Solomon describes his wealth as hevel again. In verse 11, he writes, yet when I surveyed all that my hands had done and what I toiled to achieve, everything was hevel, meaningless. Now, it's not wrong to be wealthy. It's not wrong to have money and stuff. There have been some amazing godly Christians over the years, many of them actually written about in the Bible. But if we live our life pursuing money, stuff, above everything else, well, if we look to these things for meaning, Ecclesiastes tells us it's again like trying to grab hold of your breath. You can't. According to Celebrity Net Worth, Jim Carrey, the actor, Jim Carrey, he is worth $180 million. Imagine being worth that much money. Incredible. But he once famously said, I think everybody should get rich and famous so they can see that it's not the answer. So, if it's not sex or pleasure and it's not money and stuff, well, what is it? What's the answer? Where can we find true meaning in our lives? Well, Solomon in Ecclesiastes, he goes looking into another area. He goes looking in the area of power. In verse 9, he says, I became greater by far than anyone in Jerusalem before me. I find it quite funny that he says greater by far. It's like greater by far than anyone else. Just in case we had any doubt as how powerful he was. Just like with pleasure and money, he knows power is another place the human heart runs to find that kind of meaning in our lives. So he experiments there himself. And I'm going to be honest with you, okay? I think this might be, out of the three, I think this might be the most kind of subtle, the most seductive of them all. Because I see this so much in my own heart, more than I'd care to admit. So let me tell you a pathetic and frankly embarrassing story to prove it. Okay, so over the summer, I was out running in Battersea Park, And I was running down a path in Bastille Park, which kind of has a little slope going down. And as I was running down the little slope, I heard wheels behind me. So I thought, okay, well, who's this? I turn around and I see a little boy on a push scooter kind of coming up quite fast behind me. And because we're going down a slope, suddenly he was going super fast and overtook me. And as he overtook me, the cheeky little person, he then looked at me and he smiled at me as he went past me. And what I should have done was I should have smiled back at him and silently applauded his speed because he was going at a good speed down this hill. But I didn't. Of course I didn't. What I did was I lined him up and then I sped up, ran past him, and as I ran past him, and I can't believe I'm even admitting this, I turned to him and I gave him a smile back, which basically said, "Beat that, you little rascal." Pathetic, ridiculous. And yet, very satisfying. Very revealing of my heart. I don't like being beaten, especially by children. But seriously, success is seductive, isn't it? I mean, my bar is clearly pretty low these days, but maybe yours is higher. Maybe yours is higher. Maybe for you, it's about landing that dream job. Maybe you're lining up a job. Maybe you've landed a job at the summer. Or maybe you're at work, you're trying to close the deal. Or maybe it's just simply looking out. Maybe it's at church, maybe this morning, or maybe at work. You look out, you look at other people, you compare yourself to them, and you think, I'm better at what I do than them. And when you think that, it makes you feel good. We want to succeed in whatever we do, don't we? We do. We want to succeed. We dream of succeeding in whatever we do. When I wanted to be an actor, I'd be lying to you if I said I never daydreamed about what I would say when, not if, I won an Oscar. And I wonder if one reason we chase power and success is that being at the top, it just feels good, doesn't it? It feels good when you're at the top. You kind of feel supreme. No one else is like you. But Ecclesiastes 2 says, chasing power is like chasing the wind. You can never quite catch it. And when you do achieve, it never quite lasts as long as you want it. And deep down, I think we do know that power and fame, it won't satisfy. I think we know this. That's why it's almost cliche when you hear kind of celebrities saying that when they've made it to the top, it doesn't satisfy their lives. So for example, Scotty Scheffler, the golfer, over the summer, he won the Open, his big sporting trophy, one of the biggest in the world, and he said this. He said, "This is not a fulfilling life." Actress Viola Davis, she's an incredible actress. She's amazing. She's won an Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Tony. And she said this. She said, "The cap of success, it wasn't it for me. I'm grateful for it, but it's not it. It doesn't make a life. There's no U-Haul in the back of a hearse." And there's something clearly wrong, isn't there? There's something clearly wrong when time and time again we hear people who've made it to the top, if you like, who've got the glory, the power, and they tell us it's not worth living for, and yet so often we try to follow them, to emulate them. There's something wrong with us, isn't there, when we pursue these things when we're told it's not worth it. And of course, there's nothing wrong with winning or success. God is the one who gives us abilities and gifts. We were just watching Chariots of Fire last night. Eric Liddell, the runner, he's a Christian. He sort of talks about how when he runs, he feels God's pleasure. Being given these things is not what's wrong. But when we chase the fame, the glory, the power, maybe over other things, when we make it the ultimate meaning in our life, well, then they will disappoint. Now, today is 1 week away from the moment we've all been waiting for. This time next week, as Jago and Susanna said, we're going to be back in the building, and it is going to feel good, isn't it? I cannot wait to be back in the building. It's not going to be totally finished. But we will be back in there on Sundays, and I can't wait. So much effort, so much generosity has been shown. We praise God for it. We really do. But if you're anything like me, you'll be tempted to think, this is going to be the silver bullet. Once the building's done, thousands of people on Sunday are going to stream in through the door. No one's ever going to complain about the loos again. The kitchen is going to be whipping up Michelin star foods. It's just going to be amazing. The building's going to unlock Clapham. A bit over the top. But Solomon, he thought the same about his own projects. In Ecclesiastes, in our passage, he writes, I undertook great projects. I built houses for myself and planted vineyards. I made gardens and parks and planted all kinds of fruit trees in them. I made reservoirs to water groves of flourishing trees. And yet, what did he discover? That even the grandest building projects can't give lasting meaning. You know, as brilliant as Revitalize 250 is, and it is brilliant, it's still ultimately hevel. There's still going to be snags in the building. You know, the loos will still probably sometimes get blocked, okay? The microphones might still occasionally not work. And it's certainly not going to be the magic silver bullet that suddenly makes the whole of Clapham, you know, turn up on a Sunday and decide to follow Jesus. Although we pray for it. So as we near an end, the big question remains, if meaning is not found in sex, money, power, building projects, where can we find it? And maybe for some of us today, the real question is, how do I stop chasing after things I know won't fully satisfy me? And the answer comes in one remarkable claim made over 2,000 years ago. Jesus says in John chapter 14, verse 6, a famous verse, he says, I am the way and the truth and the life. If you long for meaning and purpose, but like Solomon, you often feel that kind of sense of kind of chasing after the wind, left with that kind of hollow feeling inside, well then Jesus says, I am the way. In other words, only I can satisfy the deepest longings that you have in your heart and soul. The world will throw up all sorts of alternatives, and it does, doesn't it? We'll all have moments. Maybe you're here today and you're having this type of moment at the moment where you're tempted to kind of just drift off, drift away, follow something or someone else. Well, to that Jesus says, I am the way. To the person tired of chasing after things that will never deliver, whether it's pleasure, you know, sex, porn, you know, chasing after the latest buzz, or if it's money, you know, and the pursuit of stuff and comfort, or power, chasing, you know, success and feeling better than others, Jesus says, I am the truth. I am the truth. There's no spin. There's no fake news with Jesus. He doesn't just speak truth. He says, I am the truth. And as he says in the same gospel, the truth, Jesus himself, will set you free. Free from the lie that more stuff will fill the emptiness. Free from the treadmill of chasing after stuff that never lasts. Free because in Jesus, we finally see what reality, what life is all about. That we were made not for pleasure, not for money, not for power, as good as those things might be, but we were made for a relationship with Jesus Christ, to enjoy Jesus. And nothing else is designed and can even live up to taking his place. When pleasure whispers to us, it can truly satisfy our new heart as it follows Jesus. It will want to turn away from the lie and follow truth himself. So for me, one small but steady help online for me has been accountability software. So I've got it on all my devices. I've had it for over 10 years. A group of friends of mine, we set it up together. And it just helps remind each other that pleasure, it never keeps its promises. The software, it doesn't fix our hearts, but it's just a helpful kind of guardrail when we're online. When money insists it can give kind of real purpose to our life, our new heart wants to turn away from that lie to truth himself. And many have found that the regular discipline of giving kind of away a portion of their income each month is a helpful way of silencing that lie. You know, saving might be a wise thing to do, but prayerfully setting up a sort of simple habit, a continual habit of generosity, like a standing order or whatever it might be, it might prevent us from becoming kind of hoarders. Or when power or success claim to offer lasting meaning in our life, our new heart will begin to see through the shallowness, the hollowness of the promise. I think of someone who turned down a really sort of lucrative new job because she knew that by taking this job, she basically wouldn't be able to come along on Sundays and worship God with her church family. Jesus says, I am the way and the truth and finally the life. What Jesus offers us is it's not just like a general life. He offers us his life. Which means if you're anything like me, you'll know what it is to have stumbled along the way, to have had wobbles in your faith. Maybe that describes something of your life right now, this morning, or this afternoon. The good news is this. The life Jesus gives us is a life in which every mistake, sin, past, present, and future, is being dealt with, forgiven. When Jesus died on the cross, he paid the price for them all, for us, out of an act of love for you and for me. They've been dealt with. So today, as we turn to him anew, maybe for the first time, maybe for the 100th time, to enjoy that relationship we've been designed to have with him, we can enjoy him as the one who offers us something that truly satisfies, because he is the meaning of life itself. Colossians 1:16, as we come to an end, says this. It says, all things have been created through him and for him. He really is the way and the truth and the life.